Cody Davis, welcome to Sports Spectrum, man. It's good to see you.
Jason, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you. You're not playing football this year. And I was thinking about this. This is the first time, we talked about this in the hallway, since, can you name the year that last time you didn't play football?
Oh, man, I cannot name the year. Calculated it, though, 22 years of tackle football in a row.
Yeah. And you're 35 now, so that goes back to what, you were 13, 12?
Oh, man.
I'm doing some quick math.
You're better
here.
at math than me, but
yeah.
And then I played flag football before that, so growing up.
Do you remember the very first year you played football? Like even the flag football? Is that like before you could even remember?
No, that was before memory. That was how early it was going on.
Wow. So it's been a long time. Let's not get too quick in the math here, but it's been a long time. Is it weird, like, to not be playing football this time of year?
Very weird. I mean, right now, definitely being at home full-time, stay-at-home dad, still hasn't hit me fully. I think it's going to take that full year, that full season going by to really realize, man, I'm really out of it. But right now, just at home at Fort Worth, trying to figure out what's next. That's
okay, and that's good. There's some excitement in that too, right? Like, especially as a believer, we talk about Proverbs 3 and 5 and 6 all the time about the Lord directing our steps. This is kind of that. I don't know if it's an uncertain season, but also kind of an exciting time too, right?
Definitely. I mean, my whole football career, I think I was less of a football fan than most players were. Mm-hmm. So I kind of took pride in, hey, this isn't my identity, but now I'm stepping into it, and it's like, all right, you've always said that. Let's prove it now. And, it's been different. I've been, a little bit lost trying to figure out, my next purpose, my next pathway.
Yeah.
But God's been there through it all, and, I feel like I'm moving into a new relationship, a deeper relationship with him, and one that I haven't been in that environment before.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you because it was, let's see here on my notes, March 28th, 2024. You had a retirement sort of announcement on Instagram. I think it was like five or six different slides. You did it well, Cody. Good job there. But it said, "Christ is my strong foundation," and you talked about how I have more dreams and look forward to chasing them. But take us into the lead up first of all, before we go deep into like what you wrote and even your faith story about the decision. Like, how did you know it was time?
Yeah, I think I always tell people those last 3 or 4 years, really. I would say the last 3 years that I played, some of that adrenaline high, whatever you want to call it, that comes with playing in the NFL just started to wane. It was, man, how am I going to get through this workout, through this run, through this game?
Yeah.
Some of those questions started popping up. Your body starts giving you little hints. Hey, this might be time.
Yeah.
The game days were still fine. I was still out there competing at a high level and playing some of my best ball, but just kind of started to have a feeling that it might be time to hang it up.
Did you know your last game was your last game when you played it because that was also Matthew Slater's last game, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, it was.
That snowy New York Jets game, the final game of the season. Did you know that was yours too?
Yes. So speaking of, injuries and hints, 2 years or going into my 10th year, I was thinking, all right, play 10 years, have a good career, hang it up and call it a day. In week 6, go out there and tear my ACL and completely end my season, go into a new, rehab surgery that I've never been through before in my career. And I thought it might be over then.
Yeah.
I was probably 60% sure I wanted to come back and even attempt to play again. So that was a tough decision, but ended up deciding to come back, try and finish it the right way. And so I knew it was, if I could even survive this coming back and trying to play after a torn ACL, that would be my last year. So we knew it was the last game, invited my parents and my brother's family up. Special time and typical New England game. Let's just have a snow day and freeze. And it was, but it was cool. Be able to get 2 tackles in that game and kind of wrap it up and be with my family. It was great.
Well, what was also cool was in your last season last year, the game against Denver, I think it was Christmas Eve, you got your first touchdown. So it was, I don't know if you even thought about divine intervention in that moment, but thinking back to that injury the year before, and then you come back and you get a chance to score because you're in a position where you don't get a whole lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, and part of my retirement speech, I kind of went back and forth on, these are my accomplishments on the field, but really the accomplishments off the field meant more to me. But going through that ACL, trying to get back physically, and really that last year playing was painful year.
Yeah.
Just felt like way more downs than ups, just a tough roller coaster. And literally, I don't think playing on the field was probably worth it until I got that touchdown. So that was just kind of the cherry on top, at least of, being on the field.
And you got the ball, I hope, or got a game ball they gave to you, right?
That was a little interesting. I ended up getting the ball, but didn't know the rule. You can't keep a special teams ball during the game.
Oh.
So I tried to take it off the field, and I got jumped by 2 or 3 refs.
I didn't know this.
You can't do that. So
Really?
they just kind of kept it in mind which one it was. They had to keep playing with it, and then I got it after the game.
Oh, so the kickoff ball, just so people listening, even the non-football fan, kind of like yourself, as you said, they use different balls for different sequences, correct? So there's a special teams ball and then an offensive ball for each team.
Yeah, so I didn't, like I said, I'm in special teams. I should know all the rules, but this is some weird rule I never knew about. Huh. So they get together before the game. They have kickoff balls, and they actually the teams choose them one at a time.
Wow.
To pick the kickoff balls, and they end up with 6 balls, 3 per team. And those are the balls for the game. You can't keep them. You can't store them away for special plays, unlike the offensive, defensive balls, which that's interesting. Kind of weird.
So they said they gave you the ball. You're positive it's the ball, but even if it wasn't, it was one of 3 balls that was used. So it's not like there was this choice of 50 touchdown footballs and you're just grabbing them. You got your ball.
Yes, I got my ball. I made sure of it. I was going to all the kickers and punters. I'm like, which one was that? And the equipment guy. So I'm pretty positive.
I love that. Well, in your retirement speech, like you mentioned, Cody Davis, you said, "Christ is my strong foundation." Let's go back and kind of have you take us through how that strong foundation came about and came together.
Yeah, we'll take it all the way back. I think growing up, I was raised in a good moral household. We were good people. That's what we wanted to be known for. Worked hard, did everything right. Church didn't enter the picture until maybe elementary school. Got invited by a friend and his family, and my family, being the good people that they are, they're like, yes, that's what good people do. Let's do that every Sunday. No matter what, we're going to be at church because that's what good people do.
Stephenville, Texas, correct?
Stephenville, Texas.
There you
go.
go.
Very southern. It was church and football,
Yeah.
Those are the 2 musts.
Those are the 2 religions.
That's right. And so that was great, being invited and getting to go hear the Word of God, and that's where I became a believer. But I didn't know what walking that out was like. I was a little double-minded, and knowing that we were there for the wrong reasons. I'd seen other Christians, proclaiming Christians making mistakes and not living correctly. So didn't really grow in my faith. Kind of got to know them, those Sundays at 1.5 hours.
Yeah.
So that's how I began my walk. Being a Christian.
When did it come to a point where you were surrendering and using those words that take you a little deeper than just kind of like, I accept Jesus, and that's not a bad thing either. Everybody needs a starting point, but I think at some point there becomes this surrender, this firm foundation like you talked about in your retirement speech. Like, when do those kind of start to happen for you?
Yeah, so going from high school to college, going from that strict household, doing everything right. My mom was a teacher and a coach, so I was on the straight and narrow, not God's straight and narrow, but
right, mom's straight and narrow.
Mom's straight and narrow. So going from that strict household, I kind of fell away from going to church. Still was a believer, but my life was not lining up with a follower of Jesus until about my second year. And there was kind of 2 events that happened. One, I just came off a redshirt freshman, really good season. Freshman All-American, coming back that sophomore year. And I was like, God, if you want this to be, my career, let me do amazing this year, basically was the prayer.
Sure.
Almost testing God. And you know how that probably ends up.
Yeah.
The first game, go out there and get a concussion.
Oh.
Just total wake-up call, like I'm playing for the wrong reasons. And not long after that, we had a team chaplain that brought the word to us before a game, and it was, to God be the glory. Who are you playing for? So ever since then, heart just kind of caught on fire for the Lord. Started walking closer to Him and learning what that truly meant.
Texas Tech, right? That's
Texas
where that
Tech.
happened. So that's really fascinating to me. And that's a key time for a young person, right? Because your identity, you talk about this, and it's talked about a lot at the conference we're at. It's talked about a lot just in the circles of sports spectrum. Identity rooted in sport, rooted in value from what other people think, or value in Christ. And you talked about firm foundation in Christ. But that seems like such an interesting time for a lot of young people to say, you know what? Okay, I'm starting to get it now. But then you get to the pros, and you were undrafted. You had a good college career, but still undrafted, and it was the Rams, the then St. Louis Rams, before they went to LA, who took a chance on you. And you're undrafted, and you come in, and so much of how people are viewing you and valuing you is based on performance. Because you're undrafted and you're trying to make this team. You're not locked in with a spot like maybe a third rounder or a second rounder is. So what was that time like for you, that really young, impressionable time, if you will, coming from college right into the professional ranks at whatever you were, 22, 23 years old?
Yeah, like you were saying, you're going from, being a student athlete, which before NIL time, so it was truly
Right.
student athlete.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, right?
Yeah, no money being made there.
That's right.
To straight the business of football, coming in undrafted, you're kind of doing the numbers on the roster, trying to figure out if you can make a spot. And I had a guy come in and mentor me. His name's Matt Giordano. He was a safety, special team safety. And it's interesting, he actually came in at a time where, all right, I think I'm going to make the roster. He was a late addition to training camp and vying for my spot, basically. I'm like, oh, man. I'm like competing, trying to, do everything I can. And this guy takes me under his wing, shows me how to watch film, how to study. He's praying over me before games. This huge influence in my life. And funny thing is, he took my job.
Wow.
And he's doing all this. I get cut, put on practice squad. But he truly showed me, how to be a pro, but how to be a servant leader. And he knew he was training up somebody to replace him. And I ended up, being activated after the 5th game because 2 injuries happened. And, probably ended up taking his job the next year. But, showed me how to be a true pro and a true Christian, I think.
Yeah, because the NFL really does a great job of helping, and at least providing resources like team chaplains, and usually within each team are Bible studies and opportunities to stay rooted in Christ throughout the year and not just go to chapel on Saturday night and that's it. What were some of those early years like? Some of the people you mentioned, your mentor, but some of those other people and just those disciplines that you were able to kind of instill. I'm not sure if you were married yet, but just kind of going to Bible study, couple studies, whatever that looked like early in your career.
Yeah, huge team chaplain influence. Every team I was at, finding a great church home. That first church home was huge for us, especially no kids. We had time to dive into the small group, married small group, and actually just met another college couple, college athlete, and just bonded. And that was just a huge formative time for us. In our walk, newly married, baby on the way, after the 3rd year, and all those life events that come at you that, sometimes outside looking in, they just see NFL and life is going great. But, you go through life together and the ups and downs of it.
How did you handle success and handle defeat or injury or setbacks earlier in your career compared to maybe later in your career?
Ooh, that's a hard question. I think easily earlier in the career, you're kind of riding the roller coaster. I think you come in, you're scratching and clawing to do whatever you can to get on that roster, and you just kind of go with the ebbs and flows, the highs and lows of the career that's going to come every week. Playing in the NFL, I always say, I don't know if this is the greatest analogy, but NFL contracts are written on toilet paper. They can be ripped up at any time. So
For sure.
There's no security in it.
Yeah.
You're always renting houses. You never know when you're going to up and leave. And then I would even throw in your prayer life. Contrast that with the end of my career. I had the opportunity to kind of raise up, kind of like Matt Giordano did for me. Here comes this young safety special teams guy. And I had the opportunity, to kind of pour into him, come alongside him, and kind of not ride that roller coaster. We had, maybe the Patriots might have had a few crash and burns there at the last couple of years.
Sure.
Plenty of time to freak out, but it was actually an opportunity to just pour in, to the locker room and show, you don't have to ride that roller coaster, and kind of be that steady, positive influence in the locker room.
Describe some of the guys that, really were there as a steadying, calming veteran. I'm thinking Matt Slater, right? And who are the other Matt Slaters? And maybe you can talk about Matt too, who are in those locker rooms, who were leaders. And you could be classified as kind of probably a co-leader with Matt from a spiritual perspective. Because those young guys, I just think a lot of locker rooms, and I think the Patriots really focused on this. It's vital to have some of these veteran guys to really not just help you spiritually, but just to help you grow up. Because when you're 23 coming in and all the talent's there and all the eyeballs are on you, but you've never really lived life and you don't even know what you're doing, if we're being honest, at 23 compared to 33, 34. So what was that like for you throughout the different teams that you've been on in your career?
Yeah, I would think, the Patriots kind of stand apart for me because you had that player veteran presence that wasn't just talking the talk, but actions were speaking way louder than words. I think the other teams, it was more the team chaplain influence. But whenever I signed with the Patriots, it was during the pandemic. We didn't even have off season.
Right.
Nobody was meeting together. And the first thing I was invited to was a Bible study through Zoom from Matthew Slater, still putting that on through the pandemic, making sure everybody's connected and bringing in a new guy to make sure, I'm getting to know the team and being fed in that way. So him and Devin McCourty, that's why I say Patriots stood apart, because their Bible study, their influence in the faith world, but not only that, but community service. I mean, they just lived it, and it was at another level that I hadn't seen before.
What do you remember about your first NFL game? You said it was week 5, I think you just mentioned. A couple injuries, you're called up. What do you remember about that first game with the Rams?
Yeah, whenever you're on practice squad, you do everything except to go to the game. So, I'd practice during the week, go home, and I was doing some arts and crafts, basically building like washerboards. I don't know, filling my time, playing a lot of tennis with Ashley.
Yeah.
And then week 3, major injury happened. I'm like, oh, is this going to be it? Didn't happen. Week 4, another IR injury to the safety room. I don't think that happened the rest of my career. And then was elevated and got to play against the Jaguars, I think was the first game. Just nervous as can be. Family came up. They didn't know how long I was going to play.
Yeah.
Wanted to be there for it, and just an exciting time. I don't even think I played maybe on 2 special teams at that point. Just really exciting, and I think the most memorable thing for me was my first tackle. So we got to play a couple weeks later until I get one, and run down on kickoff and actually flip the guy full circle at the 10-yard line. So that was a
nice.
Very memorable one.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. I love that. Talking to Cody Davis here on Sports Spectrum. So you're married, you have 3 boys. How is it to be a parent, and to be a husband for that matter, and be a football player at the same time? Because we talked about now, it's like, oh, okay, I'm not playing football anymore. But what was that like to manage that? Did you find it pretty easy, or was that something that was a struggle to be present as a football player, but also be present as a husband and certainly as a dad to 3 boys?
I think it was extremely difficult, especially in my earlier years. Moving, our first child was born in St. Louis, and then 3 weeks later, we moved all the way to L.A. Amidst the chaos of losing a mother-in-law thrown in there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right.
So a lot of parenting challenges came in those bundles, and I'm trying to make the team. There's all different types of stuff going on, but Contrast that with move to Jacksonville, then we have our second child 3 weeks later.
Wow.
So we kind of put these things in bundles. And then our third child was born during the pandemic. So I was supposed to be going from Jacksonville to Boston. Every team changed. We have a kid, so hopefully we don't sign any more contracts.
Well, you're on a different team now. You're on the I'm home team.
That's right. So I was supposed to go from Jacksonville to Boston, but the pandemic, so we RV'd. My parents brought the RV and brought us back to Texas to have our third child. But some of those behind-the-scenes struggles that, you get thrust into, and then also you have this full-time career where half the year we hardly see you, the other half you're home, and you're trying to figure out that dynamic. So all those struggles.
Yeah, and like you say, and don't ever apologize for being emotional, but I think just the ebbs and flows of life, and it's like all I simply asked you was like kind of being a dad and being a husband, and immediately our minds go to sort of the roller coaster of life, right? And now you have an opportunity to kind of pivot into this next phase of life that's uncertain, but still knowing that there's going to be roller coasters. I want to talk about being a dad for a second, and if this gets you emotional, I'm sorry. But that's totally fine because I think it's a great privilege to be a dad. I'm a dad of a daughter. You have 3 boys. Kind of being a parent, I'm going to ask it this way. You're a dad to 3 boys, and you love Jesus, and obviously God is your father. How have you seen your faith manifested in how you've parented your 3 boys and how maybe they've even seen you and allowed you to see God maybe a little different?
Oh, man.
Does that make sense?
That is a deep question. I might have you
I don't even know how to
re-ask that here in a little bit.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
I think the first thing that my mind goes to is how far away like career is for them. We make a big deal about football, NFL, and then I have my devastating injury, ACL. I'm just going through it mentally. Yeah. And my boys are loving it. Dad is home. What are you talking about? Injury. This is perfect. Why don't you just stay here the rest of the time?
Right.
So, career and all this worldly stuff, is almost thrown out the window for him. I'm like, yeah, this is pretty awesome. I'm dealing with some career lows, but life is going great. Truly blessed to have 3 healthy boys. And wow, what amazing time with them I've had these last 2 years.
Yeah, being a dad's just the best, and I think it gets better. Your kids are 8, 6, and 4, right? So they're just in it. So you get to kind of see. I don't know if they play sports, but like little league and starting to play, rec sports and things like that. It seems like it probably is a great time as you retire and transition. Retire is a really hard word. As you transition into the next phase of life, to be around and be able to see them, because a lot of guys might stay in the league longer and miss some of those moments.
Yeah, it's perfect timing. Starting to get going in sports and then going from, when some faith issues come up, Boston public school, now to Texas private Christian school. Their world's getting flipped around in a good way. But, even through sports, you're trying to teach them all these things of, godly principles that aren't of the world. So they're, wrestling with that already, how other people react versus how we should react.
Yeah, as we wind down, what would you have said if I was talking to you, 12 years ago when you were undrafted, 11 years ago, and I said, you're going to play 11 years in this league, and you're going to accomplish some cool things, but hang in there. Just because you weren't drafted, you're going to get 11 years in this league. What would you have said to me if I had told you that?
Yeah, I probably would have started laughing quite a bit. Yeah. It's crazy looking back. You come in rookie year and they had us fill out this card. If everything could come true, what would you want? And I just said, 6 to 8 years in the NFL would be like, beyond what I could ever dream of.
Wow.
So to look back at 11 years doesn't seem real. Sometimes it seems like forever ago, talking about St. Louis days.
Sure.
But it also goes by in a flash, and so much has happened in those 11 years. It's just amazing to look back and kind of see that path that you've been taking down.
No doubt. All right, last question. It's a simple question, but, sometimes it can take us down a deep road. But who's Jesus to you right now? Who's Jesus Christ to you?
Like I said, he's my foundation, I think. And even through every PAO conference, every Bible study, walking closer to him and his will being lived out through us better each day. far from perfect, far from figuring that out. But I'm committed to, walking that path and bringing my wife and my kids with me.
That's awesome. I did say it was the last question, but of course it's not. I have one more follow-up from that. What are rhythms and disciplines, kind of non-negotiables for Cody Davis in your faith? What are those non-negotiables that you absolutely can't be without?
That's something that I struggle with and work on. That I've never been a good reader. I don't know the last time I finished a full book.
Yeah.
So getting that time in the Word has been difficult for me. When I was working, I loved the audio Bible, podcast and stuff like that. I need to work that back in because now I'm not traveling back and forth every day.
Right.
I think that prayer, time in the Word, something for me is just loving and serving others. I think that kind of fuels me. That comes easier to me. That's kind of, my bread and butter, I think. So finding those opportunities to love and serve people every day, but also I'm trying to learn how to create those opportunities going forward.
Yeah, your wife did tell us about the football camp and some real cool opportunities. You kind of finished that up, and there was a large amount of money. I won't say, if you want to say it, you can, but just the idea of serving and giving back and really helping to raise some funds sounds like a pretty cool thing too. Yeah,
that kind of what I said, all those accomplishments football-wise are cool, but those are going to be here today, gone tomorrow, kind of like a vapor. But some of those accomplishments that really meant something, those significant impacts, kind of like the football camp, I love doing. I did a charity, Cody's Gamers, so I game with the Boston Children's Hospital kid once a month.
Love that.
Still doing it. I don't know how long they want to play with an ex-football player, but I'm gonna keep playing.
Yeah.
And trying to spread some joy that way. But that's really the stuff that matters.
That's cool. All right. I know I say the last question. I'm a terrible interviewer today, but I did forget one cool nugget that I forgot to ask you about. You once appeared on The Price is Right as a contestant in 2017 and won $5,000 on the Punch a Bunch game. Is that accurate? Because that's from Wikipedia, so you never know if it's true. But if it is accurate, tell us that story, please. And then we'll finish up here.
Yeah, so the video's out there somewhere, but everybody probably thinks that was like set up through the Rams or, I was a special guest. But, one thing me and my wife love to do since we've been St. Louis, L.A., Jacksonville, Boston, we're kind of the tourists. So we make our little bucket list of, hey, what can we do in the city? Eating, experiences, museums, whatever it may be. So we're like, let's see what TV shows are out here. Price is Right. They're free tickets. All you got to do is sign up. So I literally just signed up for a free ticket. Didn't know if I would get on or not. We made iron-on shirts. It was pretty funny.
Of course you did.
And it was like, the Rams probably got you on there, right? And no.
You did that all yourself.
So they interview everybody that goes in, and then that's how they pick. And the funny thing about my story was I don't think they meant for me to be on because they pick however many contestants, and the last one they picked, he came on down and they stopped the show. They said, wait, you've been on the show in the last year? Can't do that. So I think I was actually the backup pick.
Wow.
So I came on down last. I had one shot to bid. Asked my wife what I should bid. Didn't go with her a suggestion at all.
Oh.
Threw something out that everybody thought was way too high, and everybody underbid me. I was the right one.
You got it.
Got on stage. So it was.
What is Punch a Bunch, by the way? I don't even remember that game.
Punch a Bunch had a bunch of holes, and you just punch the paper mache, 3 of them.
Okay.
Or 3 or 4, I can't remember.
And then whatever's inside there, they pull out?
Whatever's inside, you pull out, and it has a dollar amount. But you can throw it away or if you keep it, you're done.
Right.
So it's kind of a risk and odds type thing. So I think I threw away $250, got the $5,000, and decided to stay.
It's a good time to bail, I'd say.
Yeah, there was only one other value, I think, more than that. So there was hardly any chance.
No,
so
that's fun,
took
man.
it and ran, and actually took that and the amount of all the little prizes I won. So it was like $6,000 or something.
Nice.
And actually donated it to Compassion International.
So cool. Yeah.
We just had some fun with it, and yeah, core memory for
That's
sure.
awesome. Well, I'm not going to ask you about the Spice Girls. You and your wife can talk about that. That was another thing she gave us. We're just going to pass on that.
Let's throw that out.
We're going to throw that out, Cody, and we're going to stop right here just like you did in The Price is Right. Hey, thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for loving the Lord and sharing your story with us, and all the best in the next endeavor and the next pivot in your life.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, thanks for watching Sports Spectrum here on YouTube. You can click our next video, or you can check out our website, sportsspectrum.com.